The last thing I need is the added stress of printing family photos. Fortunately, I use Chatbooks, the app that automatically turns my Instagram photos into adorable photo books. Think about all those photos you've already posted to your Instagram account. That's a whole collection of Chatbooks waiting to happen. Just connect your account, review, and order. Holy sweet Meghan Markle, it worked! Chatbooks. Live your life and let Chatbooks print it, one $10 book at a time.
I'm here with Cotopaxi founder and CEO Davis Smith. Davis, it's always a pleasure to see you. We haven't seen each other for a little over a year in person, but we've
been a while.
We've done this a few times, and so it's always great to do this.
We have done this a few times. You know, one of the fun things is, we just hit our 7-year anniversary 2 days ago. And actually, I think that's around the time we met. I think we met like right before our brand launched, and you helped get us some of our first media coverage, which was really cool.
Well, I remember that because that was Cotopaxi and you was one of the first stories I wrote about on Beehive Startups. I believe you were one of the first 5-10 companies I ever wrote about. And I still remember your story, like the story of Edgar and, the whole purpose and drive and reason for starting Cotopaxi and, moving back to Utah and that whole thing. And you mentioned like 7 years, and maybe this is a good place to start this conversation. I wonder what it's like to sustain a brand, particularly a brand like Cotopaxi, and which is really like a movement and has a cause. It's the cause, as much as it is a company, although of course it's a company first. What is it like to sustain that for that long and just continually sustain a brand and a cause in the way that you have?
Yeah, it's a great question. You always hear of these stories of businesses that most fail. I don't know what the real number is, but you hear, within 5 years, 9 out of 10 or whatever the number is. And, I have to say, like, I haven't been only part of success stories. I've had some hard moments along the way in the past. I've had some successes before as well. So I knew when starting this, there was going to be a lot of risk. And honestly, I was pretty scared when I moved here to start the business. I left my previous business, business that we'd raised quite a bit of venture capital for. It was in Brazil, in South America, where I'd grown up. And it was pretty scary. It was scary to come back and launch something. But I think, to your point, and actually maybe even a slight correction, which is, we are a cause before we are a company. It's why we exist. I would say, we're not an outdoor brand. We're not a backpack or jacket brand. We're a brand that does good. That's on my mind every day. When I wake up in the morning, that's what I'm thinking about. It's the thing that drives me. It's the thing that drives our team. And so I think that's been really important. I think it's the reason that we've had the success that we've had is because there is purpose behind what we do every day. Everyone that's part of the team, it's not a job for them. It's not part of their career path. They're there because they see this as a calling. And I certainly feel that way as well. So, and frankly, this is the future of capitalism. We look at, capitalism over the last 100 years, it's evolved quite a bit. And I look at the next 100 years and think, what is capitalism going to look like? It's going to look very different than it does like today. We need to do a better job of protecting our planet, thinking sustainably. We need to think about being more inclusive. I just posted a story on LinkedIn yesterday about a really incredible man named Miles Tucker, who I read about 10 years ago as I was graduating from the Wharton School. I was in the University of Pennsylvania archives, and I found the story of this man who in 1886 or 1887 became the first Black man to graduate from the Wharton School. He was brilliant. Graduated with honors. His graduation thesis was recognized as one of the best in the country, received national awards. In the yearbook, his class predicted that he would have all this success. 17 years later, he was dead. And when he died, he was listed as a day laborer. That was his life. He lived in a world where they simply couldn't see beyond the color of his skin. And I think of what in our world today are we blind to? What opportunities are we missing because we can't see beyond something that just seems so normal to us. And so, we're just trying to build a brand a little bit differently than others have done. And it's really fulfilling. It's really fun.
Well, I love to hear you say like it is a cause. It's not a business, it's a cause, and the business is kind of the function that allows you to pursue the cause. Is that how you would, because you do have to run the business, like that is, how you get the cause. Yeah. But I love to hear that. I don't know a lot of brands that are actually, like, you hear brands say that, as you know. But brands or companies that actually mean that, I don't know very many.
Yeah, I think that's going to change. But I think you're absolutely right. In fact, when I named the company, the legal entity, obviously the brand is Cotopaxi, but the legal entity is actually called Global Uprising. And it was this idea that, like, we need an uprising. We need a movement. We need to go do something that inspires millions of people to go think about the world differently, to join us in giving back and making the world a better, kinder, and more just place. And so that's certainly how I see it. I certainly see this as more of a movement and maybe less of a business, but it is a business. It's we're a benefit corporation, a PBC, a public benefit corporation, which is becoming a little bit better known, but it's kind of you could think of it almost like as a hybrid between a for-profit business and a nonprofit, but it is for-profit. We just commit to use our profits to go do good in the world. And so, it's a lot of fun. It's been a fun learning experience.
Well, I believe you were the first benefit corporation in Utah, right?
Yeah, I think that might be true. There weren't, if we weren't the first, I don't know.
It was brand new when you were doing it. Like, it was barely a thing. So I imagine like you were the first as I remember it. I'm sure that I've written a story saying you were the first. So if that counts for anything.
Yeah, it was certainly early in the movement. And when I moved to Utah, actually Utah itself didn't even have benefit corporations. So we incorporated as a Delaware public benefit corporation. But we might have been the first one operating in Utah. I think that's possible. And then I got involved with the legislation here in Utah to get benefit corporations, that legislation passed. That was the first time I'd done anything with government and legislation. It was a fun learning. But sadly, honestly, we need to do a better job in Utah. For some reason, I don't know why we aren't leading the way, but I think I look at Colorado, they have hundreds, I think 200 or 300 B Corps, certified B Corps. And a B Corp is a company that goes through this audit process where they basically go to B Labs, this organization that validates companies that are doing good. And you say, hey, these are all the things that we're doing. They audit you. It's a long process, but you get through it and you become part of this community and you're a certified B Corp. Colorado has like 200 or 300 of them. Utah has 6. And I'm really surprised because we're a community that cares about people. And we're a community that's lived all over the world. And we are passionate about business and capitalism. It just seems like there's an opportunity here in Utah to do more, to do better. I think a lot of companies are doing good things and maybe aren't aware of B Corps and the value there. But I'd love to see more of that happening. Maloof, is just a great company, great brand. They are one of the B Corps here in Utah. They just bought Down East, which many of us know, and they converted them to a B Corp. They just got certified. So there's some good things happening here, but I'd love to see the movement grow. I encourage any business owner, you should be looking into this. Join the community with us. We'd love to have you be part of it.
I love that. You mentioned a word there, community, which got me thinking. I think I saw you post recently about an anniversary of Questival, your first Questival with the brand. That made me think of, like, not only is Cotopaxi a brand and a cause, but it's also built an incredible community. Can you explain like the thought process behind a brand, to the world? It's like an outdoor brand. Getting involved in something like a Questival and actually like launching these and doing these. I believe your first one was here in Utah, but you've done them all over. I'm fascinated by the community inside of Cotopaxi.
Yeah, the community has been special. One thing I believed when we were launching the brand was we weren't going to win by going and creating, a product that's super technical and saying, hey, we're more technical than Black Diamond or Patagonia or Arc'teryx. Like, we built better product than them. I just don't believe people care that much. Like, they expect good quality gear, and beyond that, like, they just want something. They want a brand that represents their values. And so when we launched the brand, especially knowing that we're targeting like a younger millennial or Gen Z consumer, we knew that we needed to create something that really connected with them, and we had that. Like, we had purpose built into our brand. And so it was just a matter of helping them live those brand values. So the day that we turned on our website, we held this first event, this Questival. We showed up on college campuses with a couple llamas we bought on KSL Classifieds, and we went around campuses for a few weeks telling people about this event. And miraculously, 3,000 people showed up that knew nothing about our brand, but every one of them got one of our backpacks, and then went and spent 24 hours living our brand values. They formed teams with their friends, and they went and completed challenges in the outdoors and giving service in the community. And then there were prizes of gear and trips and other things. And it was pretty phenomenal. I realized we had something special when I saw people wearing homemade Cotopaxi shirts and hats that they made themselves, because we didn't sell those things yet. And it was like the brand resonated with people. And you see that, I was, when I travel, you see somebody else with Cotopaxi on, and it's like, you look at each other and it's kind of like, yeah, sometimes something's said, sometimes it's not. A couple of years ago, I was in Seoul in South Korea. I was crossing the crosswalk. I was wearing a Cotopaxi backpack, and some guy crossing the crosswalk goes, "Cotopaxi." And I'm like, wait, who are you? Like, how do you know who we are? So I I turned around, walked back across the street, and I was like, I'm actually the founder. And he's like, wait, what? And he was wearing something Cotopaxi himself. And it was like this special connection. It's certainly a community. This last week, spring break, I was in Florida with my family, visiting some family we have there. And same thing, you're at a Disney park and you see some people with some do good masks or a do good shirt or a Cotopaxi backpack, and you just you always get a nod or someone saying, hey, I love your bag. So it's certainly a community that's been built.
That's beautiful. How do you build that culture both within the company and also so it extends so these people become, because you really are, like, whenever I wear Cotopaxi or see someone wearing Cotopaxi, it's as though you're an ambassador for the brand and for the cause, the do good cause. How do you build that? How have you built that culture? Because I'm sure it starts within the team, and then you've extended it out to anyone who wears the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think brand and culture are just two sides of the same coin. It is impossible to build a great brand if you don't have a great internal culture, and the other way around. So the way that we thought about it was, we first identified core values. So before we sold anything, before we even knew what we were going to sell, I flew in from Brazil. I put together a team of five other people that I believed I needed to go build this brand. We met in a cabin here in Utah. Some had never been to Utah before. And I just outlined the vision for what I wanted to build. And together we talked about our values, and we identified 3 core values that we were going to build this brand around. And instead of talking about our go-to-market strategy and the product that we were going to be launching, we talked instead about what we stood for. And we started building rituals and traditions internally that reinforced those values. And then we tried to build a brand that reinforced those values, building impact into everything that we do. So whether it's the supply chain, you go dig into the supply chain and you start reading stories about impact that we've had, in communities in Bolivia where we buy llama wool, or in our factories in the Philippines where we use remnant material and we go make these one-of-a-kind backpacks where we've empowered the sewers to go choose and design the bags for themselves. For the first time, they get a voice in the creative process. Like, the more you dive into the story, you get a bag, shipped to you that you bought online. You get a handwritten thank you card written by a refugee. It's their first job when they get resettled in Utah. Every touch point, the deeper you dive into the brand, the more you see the purpose and the impact. And I think that's really the secret is, build something that stands for something, and then build that into everything that you do. You have to think about it every day, all day. It's what I talk about with my team every single day. And, I challenge them to think about how they're doing things and how they can inject our mission and purpose into their work, whether they're in the accounting team or whether they're in customer support or in product. So I think that's certainly an important part of it.
Well, it's got to play a role too when you build these partnerships. Like you recently came out with a partnership with HOKA, which is this really amazing, like outdoor running shoe brand. I assume you'll only partner with people who match your values.
Yeah, you know, partnerships are fun. It's really fun to partner with another brand that shares values with you. And, you know, HOKA is this really rapidly growing running shoe company. In just a handful of years, they've grown to several hundred million in revenue. The president of their company is actually on our board, Wendy Yang. We actually had this collaboration. They also own Teva, the sandal company. And we started working with them with these two collaborations. And then we got to know the president, Wendy Yang. So she ended up joining our board towards the end of last year. So Jeremy Andrus and Wendy are on our board. And a couple others, but it's you know, that's just been a great partnership. HOKA is a big believer in creating a more inclusive running community, and you know, I think the outdoor industry traditionally has been very white and very male, and that's something that as a brand, Cotopaxi, we just felt we could do better. I wanted to create a more inclusive brand that brought more people into the outdoors. I love the outdoors, and having not grown up in Utah, I didn't necessarily have, you know, I didn't grow up skiing. I didn't ski until I was 31 years old or 32 years old. Like, and it's kind of intimidating, frankly, you know, same with climbing. It's like the outdoor industry sometimes has this idea that like you have to be really intense in these areas and like really good at them, or you're not really welcome. And we wanted to change that. And I think HOKA has done that as well. And so that was a really fun collaboration. We sold out of most of our shoes. That we did a shoe and a pack with them. The shoes that we sold out within I think within 17 minutes, we sold out of almost all of our sizes. REI and HOKA, we're still selling them. I think within HOKA is almost sold out of all their sizes. My daughter got a pair, and if she wants to change the size, there's no more shoes anywhere. Like I'm the CEO of Cotopaxi. I can't even I had to buy. I bought my shoes. They were we ran out of shoes on our own site. I had to go buy my shoes on HOKA's website. So it was a fun collaboration.
That's amazing. You mentioned like we have some work to do here in the state around, you know, let's get some more benefit corporations. And there's obviously, you know, the value is inherent and people can, you know, see that for themselves. But what Utah, it seems to me, is doing good at and could maybe do better at is building consumer brands. When you started Cotopaxi, I don't remember a ton of consumer brands, and now we've really, I feel like the community of consumer products is really robust and only getting stronger. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you know, it is interesting because when I was choosing where to go build this business, you know, I was coming from Sao Paulo. I could have moved anywhere, and my wife is from Seattle, so I thought, you know, maybe we'd go to Seattle. But we ended up choosing Utah, and I'm so glad we did. But that was one thing. I was like, man, there's just not a great history of like consumer brands. There's some early ones like Skull Candy, which is, I think, just a phenomenal Utah story. And of course, there's Traeger, which has just been, you know, since Cotopaxi launched. Jeremy bought Traeger around the same time we launched, and what a story that has become in Utah. So that's been a great one. And then you have some great up and coming brands like Taft and you know, Rags and Thread Wallets is like a great story. You know, there's definitely some great up and coming brands. I think of Maloof as well has done a really nice job. You know, one thing I have seen is that like when I was at Wharton, some of my classmates started Warby Parker, and another classmate started Allbirds, and another one started Harry's, the shaving company. And once there was like this groundswell of like, wow, there's like 2 or 3 or 4 great brands that have been built from our class. I feel like the last, you know, decade coming out of Wharton, there's been a lot more consumer brands that have been built, just kind of being inspired by those other ones. And so I think we're going to see more and more of this in Utah as more brands are inspired by the Traegers of the world. And buy the Thread wallets of the world. Like there's going to be more of this happening, which is, I think, great. We need more diversity. We can't all be SaaS, right? We need a mix. And SaaS is great. Let's get more SaaS, but let's put some other great businesses into the Utah landscape as well.
Oh, for sure. And you got Harley Davidson moved their new electric bicycle, Serial One, to Utah recently. And so I think that's something going to help as well. It really is fascinating. Finally, I could talk to you forever.
But I have a quick question for you. Talking about community, I think you are the master community builder. And I think we could do a master class with you teaching us about building community, because you were, when you started the Beehive startups and the kind of merged with Silicon Slopes, you were young. I don't know. How old were you? Like 20, 24, 25? And somehow you rallied the entire tech community together. How did you do it? And what do you think was what was the magic that you had in what you were doing that somehow brought everyone together the way you did?
Well, first, you're very kind. I'm shocked that it's become anything, and the fact that it's become something is beautiful. And I think a lot about the legacy of it and what it's going to look like when I'm no longer part of it, but it still exists. And that's actually how I want to end our conversation on the Cotopaxi side. But for the way it worked for me is it was in some ways accidental, and in some ways very intentional. And what I understood was basically nothing except for this, and that stories are at the heart of community. And if I could tell the story of what's happening within Utah's startup and tech community and tell honest stories, and they're not press releases or it's not all celebrations. We talked a lot early on about some of our shortcomings. We talked a lot about, the various things that needed to be improved within the community, and also like telling the actual story of, how these companies got started. I still remember writing about Cotopaxi and you and your journey from like pooltables.com to the baby company in Brazil to moving here. And it was probably way too long and no one was reading it either. This is what I didn't realize is no one was reading these stories, because why would they? We put no thought into the name at all, into beehivestartups.com, right? I just bought beehivestartups.com and just started blogging basically. But what I popped my head up after writing about 20, 25 of these stories, what I popped my head up to realize was the people who were reading it were the people I was writing about. And that became a community into itself, which was shocking and was not intentional, right? I knew stories were at the heart of a community. I'd gone to school for journalism, things like that. And so I knew that was important. And stories are how everything's told. You probably think about storytelling every day as a brand, right? And how do we tell our story and get, so I knew that was going to be at the heart of it. What I didn't know was the people we were writing about, that was our community. And then it spreads from there. And so we happened upon, you and Aaron Sconard and Ryan Smith. We wrote one of the first stories about Qualtrics, which is surprising enough because, nobody really knew who Qualtrics was until 2014 when they raised that Sequoia round, right? And Josh, everybody knew who Josh was, but talking about his journey and on it, and Jeremy's journey and all these, Susan Peterson and, all these incredible Corinne Clark and, folks within the community. Writing about them, literally no one was reading it, Davis. I took Google Analytics off of BI Startups because it was too depressing to look at early on, the first year. But what I came to realize is the people who I'm writing about are reading it, and then they're sharing it, and we built something really special simply through stories. And it obviously became so much more than that, but keeping stories at the center of the community became really important to me.
It's such a great point. And I was going to say, when you said no one read it, it's I read mine. And then you kind of made the point that the people reading them were the people that were getting written about. So great point. Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned Susan Peterson, freshly picked. Man, she's done such a brilliant job in building that business as well. Well, Clint, you're a gift. We're so lucky to have you really kind of building this community. It's having lived other places around the US and the world, this is very unique what we have. And I think you've played an instrumental role in helping build this community. So well done.
Well, you're very kind. I want to end with this, Davis, because as I mentioned, like I think a lot about what Silicon Slopes is going to look like, the community and the brand and all the organization, the 501c3 nonprofit, all that type of stuff, when I'm no longer part of it, right? When I'm removed from that. And I wonder, you must think about that from Cotopaxi. Like, what do you want Cotopaxi's legacy to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly think about it. I'm an entrepreneur that, like probably many entrepreneurs, that has, built a number of different things. And in the past, I've always, after 5 or 7 years, you're kind of ready for the next thing. And I just don't feel that way anymore. Like this is it for me. I can't imagine doing anything more meaningful than this. And so it is my legacy. It's something I'm deeply passionate about. And so our focus is on fighting poverty. That's, having grown up in the developing world, I've always known that was going to be my purpose in life. I didn't know how I would do it. I didn't know it was going to be through business or through entrepreneurship, but I knew that was my deepest passion. That's what I wanted to figure out. And, that I would love to be a small part of the story that's told years from now that talks about how we eradicated extreme poverty in the world. It's possible. We will eradicate extreme poverty in my lifetime. I have no doubt about that. And I just want to be a part of getting there. And I want to bring people along with us as we do it. It's a lot more fun to do it with others than just do it on your own. So that's always been one of our hopes, is that our community could rally around this brand, and other business owners could maybe be inspired by some of the good work that we do, and that we could learn from them as well as they try to do good themselves. And so that's my greatest hope.
That's beautiful, man. And you're an amazing leader, and all the kind things you said about me. I will say, like, I don't think Utah is where it is without you and your leadership and everything you've meant to this community since you built Cotopaxi here. So thank you for everything that you've done. I'm honored to call you a friend. Thanks for coming on. We got to do this again.
Yeah. Thanks, Clint. Really appreciate it. Thank you.